Elon Musk uncovers the truth. Black Biblical Israelites hidden in history. Elon Musk, a name synonymous with disruption, innovation, and audacious ambition, has once again turned the world's attention, this time not in the realms of electric cars, space exploration, or artificial intelligence, but in the domain of historical and religious inquiry. Known for challenging conventional wisdom and reshaping entire industries, Musk's newest focus takes an unexpected and profound turn: the exploration of the historical narrative surrounding the Black Biblical Israelites. This revelation has sent shockwaves across social media, academia, and religious communities. Could one of the most influential figures of the 21st century be unearthing truths that have been buried for centuries? Why is Musk, a visionary often fixated on humanity's future, now delving into the mysteries of the ancient past? What might his findings reveal about the intersections of history, race, and identity, not just in America, but on a global scale? The question of Black Biblical Israelites, whether some of the ancient Israelites described in the Bible were Black, and whether their descendants live among us today, has long stirred debate. Historically relegated to the margins of academic and religious discussions, this subject now finds a powerful and highly visible advocate in Musk. His foray into this controversial space raises urgent questions about the narratives that shape our understanding of the past and the power dynamics that determine which histories are preserved and which are obscured. In this essay, we will delve into the historical context of the Black Israelite movement, examine the reasons behind Musk's unexpected engagement with this topic, and consider the far-reaching implications of his purported findings. Historical context of Black Israelites. The Black Israelite movement, also known as the Hebrew Israelite movement, emerged in the late 19th and early 20th centuries, driven by a desire to reclaim a sense of identity, dignity, and divine purpose for African Americans in the wake of slavery and systemic oppression. This period in American history was marked by profound social, economic, and spiritual upheaval. The abolition of slavery had not translated into true freedom or equality for African Americans, who faced pervasive racism, economic exploitation, and the dehumanizing effects of segregation under Jim Crow laws. Within this fraught environment, the Black Israelite movement began to take shape as a spiritual and social counter-narrative. The foundational claim of the movement was both radical and empowering. African Americans were not merely descendants of enslaved Africans, but were in fact the true descendants of the ancient Israelites described in the Bible. This interpretation of biblical history challenged prevailing notions of race, religion, and identity. By reframing their historical and spiritual heritage, African Americans could view themselves not as oppressed outsiders in a white-dominated society, but as a chosen people with a divine purpose and a central role in God's plan for humanity. Key figures such as Bishop William Saunders Crowdy and Prophet F.S. Cherry played pivotal roles in articulating and spreading this transformative message. Crowdy, a former slave-turned-preacher, founded the Church of God and Saints of Christ in the 1890s, blending Christian theology with Hebrew traditions. He preached that African Americans were descendants of the lost tribes of Israel and emphasized the importance of moral living, community building, and adherence to certain Mosaic laws. Similarly, F.S. Cherry established a congregation in Philadelphia, advocating the belief that African Americans were the true Israelites and rejecting mainstream Christianity as a distortion of biblical truth. This movement was revolutionary in multiple dimensions. Theologically, it reinterpreted the Bible to center African Americans as God's chosen people. Socially, it offered a powerful antidote to the dehumanizing narratives of white supremacy, asserting that African Americans were not merely victims of history, but inheritors of a sacred heritage. Politically, it fostered empowerment and collective identity, directly challenging the dominant structures of racial and religious oppression. As the Black Israelite movement evolved, it diversified into various factions and organizations, each with its own emphasis and interpretation of what it meant to be a Hebrew Israelite. Some groups, like the Church of God and Saints of Christ, focused on peaceful worship, community development, and adherence to a hybrid of Jewish and Christian traditions. These groups emphasize moral reform and spiritual renewal as pathways to social uplift. Other factions adopted a more militant posture. For example, the Nation of Yahweh, founded in the late 20th century by Yahweh ben Yahweh, born Hulon Mitchell Jr., combined black nationalist rhetoric with religious teachings. This group advocated for economic self-sufficiency, racial pride, and, at times, controversial and confrontational tactics. While their approach differed significantly from more pacifist groups, they shared the core belief that African Americans were the true Israelites. The movement's diversity reflected the varied experiences and aspirations of African Americans during the 20th century. Some sought spiritual solace and moral guidance, while others sought empowerment and resistance against systemic injustice. Despite these differences, a common thread united these groups: the conviction that the ancient Israelites were not exclusively the ancestors of modern Jews, but also included people of African descent. For much of the 20th century, mainstream historians, theologians, and archaeologists dismissed or ignored the idea that African Americans could be descendants of the ancient Israelites. Traditional biblical scholarship often portrayed the Israelites as a Middle Eastern Semitic people, emphasizing their cultural and geographical connections to the ancient Near East. This perspective left little room for African influences or identities within the Israelite population. However, recent scholarship has begun to challenge these assumptions, offering a more nuanced understanding of the ancient Near East as a cultural and ethnic melting pot. Archaeological evidence, historical records, and biblical texts suggest that the region was far more interconnected than previously acknowledged. Civilizations such as Nubia, Egypt, Canaan, and Mesopotamia were not isolated entities but were engaged in continuous trade, warfare, and cultural exchange. One key argument for a more diverse understanding of Israelite identity lies in the historical interactions between ancient Israel and Africa. Egypt, in particular, played a significant role in the biblical narrative and in shaping the cultural and political history of the Israelites. The story of the Exodus, for example, centers on the Israelites' liberation from slavery in Egypt, highlighting the profound connections between these two civilizations. While the biblical account may be theological rather than strictly historical, it underscores the deep ties between Israel and Africa. Other references in the Bible further suggest African influences within Israelite culture. The prophet Zephaniah, for instance, is described as a Cushite, a term often associated with the region of Nubia or Ethiopia. This designation implies a connection to Africa that challenges traditional depictions of the Israelites as ethnically homogeneous. Similarly, the Queen of Sheba, who visited King Solomon, is traditionally associated with the ancient kingdom of Ethiopia, further indicating the presence of African figures in the biblical narrative. Beyond the Bible, archaeological findings provide additional support for the idea of a culturally and ethnically diverse ancient Israel. Artifacts and inscriptions reveal evidence of trade and interaction between the Israelites and their African neighbors. Egyptian influences, for instance, can be seen in Israelite art, architecture, and religious practices. These connections suggest that the ancient Israelites were not an isolated group, but were part of a larger network of civilizations that included significant African contributions. The question of ancient Israelite ethnicity remains a topic of scholarly debate. While traditional scholarship often emphasized the Semitic origins of the Israelites, newer approaches recognize the complexity of identity in the ancient world. Ethnicity in antiquity was not a fixed or rigid concept, but was shaped by factors such as geography, language, religion, and political alliances. The biblical narrative itself reflects this fluidity. Figures like Moses, who was raised in Pharaoh's court, and Joseph, who became a high-ranking official in Egypt, illustrate the porous boundaries between Israel and its neighbors. The inclusion of non-Israelite figures such as Ruth the Moabite and Rahab the Canaanite in the lineage of King David further demonstrates the openness of Israelite identity. For the Black Israelite movement, these complexities provide a foundation for reinterpreting the biblical narrative in ways that affirm African American identity. By emphasizing the diverse and interconnected nature of the ancient Near East, proponents argue that African Americans have a legitimate claim to the heritage of the Israelites. This reinterpretation challenges Eurocentric readings of the Bible and opens up new possibilities for understanding the intersections of race, religion, and history. The historical and theological claims of the Black Israelite movement continue to resonate today. In an era marked by ongoing racial injustice and identity struggles, the movement offers a vision of empowerment and spiritual renewal. By reclaiming the narrative of the Israelites as a story that includes people of African descent, the movement provides a powerful framework for resisting oppression and affirming the dignity of marginalized communities. At the same time, the movement's claims raise important questions about the relationship between faith, history, and identity. How do we reconcile religious beliefs with historical evidence? What role should sacred texts play in shaping our understanding of the past? These questions are not unique to the Black Israelite movement, but are central to broader debates about religion and identity in a multicultural world. In conclusion, the Black Israelite movement represents a dynamic and multifaceted response to the challenges of race, identity, and faith in the modern world. Its roots in the 19th century reflect the resilience and creativity of African Americans seeking to reclaim their heritage and assert their dignity in the face of systemic oppression. By engaging with the historical and theological debates surrounding the ancient Israelites, the movement invites us to rethink our assumptions about identity and embrace a more inclusive vision of history and faith. 2. Elon Musk's role in the Black Israelite debate. Elon Musk's entry into the discussion surrounding the Black Israelite narrative is both unexpected and thought-provoking. Known primarily as a technological innovator and entrepreneur, Musk has built his reputation as a forward-thinking disruptor in industries such as space exploration, electric vehicles, and artificial intelligence. Through ventures like Tesla, SpaceX, and Neuralink, Musk has demonstrated his commitment to shaping humanity's future. However, his recent foray into historical and theological debates signals a surprising shift in his interests, prompting questions about what might have drawn him to such a contentious subject. Musk has consistently positioned himself as someone who challenges conventional wisdom and questions official narratives. This trait is evident in his critiques of traditional media, government regulations, and even mainstream scientific institutions. His skepticism toward establishment perspectives aligns with his broader vision of uncovering hidden truths and empowering individuals through transparency and innovation. Musk's engagement with the Black Israelite debate appears to stem from this same ethos, a desire to challenge dominant historical paradigms and explore alternative interpretations of human identity. Insiders suggest that Musk's interest in this topic may have been sparked by his fascination with the concept of suppressed knowledge. In his tweets and public appearances, Musk has often alluded to the existence of untold truths concealed by institutional power structures. The Black Israelite narrative, which questions mainstream interpretations of biblical history and ethnic identity, fits neatly into Musk's intellectual framework. By delving into this controversial and often overlooked subject, Musk positions himself as both a seeker of hidden knowledge and a disruptor of entrenched historical orthodoxy. Musk's engagement may also reflect an awareness of the broader cultural and social implications of the Black Israelite movement. The narrative not only reinterprets biblical history, but also intersects with contemporary conversations about race, identity, and power. As someone invested in the future of humanity, Musk may view this as an opportunity to influence the way history is understood and how it shapes present-day society. Thus, his interest is not purely academic, but also cultural and philosophical, reflecting his broader ambitions to impact global discourse. What sets Musk apart from traditional historians and theologians is his unparalleled access to resources. With a net worth in the billions, he has the financial means to pursue research initiatives on a scale few can rival. This advantage allows him to fund groundbreaking projects, collaborate with leading experts, and access rare materials that might otherwise remain elusive. Reports suggest that Musk has already begun leveraging these resources to investigate the Black Israelite narrative, assembling a multidisciplinary team of historians, linguists, and theologians to explore the subject in depth. One of Musk's most significant advantages lies in his ability to access and analyze archival material. Rumors indicate that he has sought partnerships with institutions such as the Vatican Library, renowned for its extensive collection of ancient texts and manuscripts. Additionally, his influence could grant him access to restricted archives housed in prestigious universities and private collections worldwide. Such resources may hold key insights into the historical and theological questions at the heart of the Black Israelite debate, potentially providing evidence to support or refute its claims. Beyond access to traditional resources, Musk's technological expertise offers unprecedented opportunities to advance historical research. Through companies like Neuralink and Tesla, Musk has pioneered advancements in artificial intelligence and machine learning, technologies that could revolutionize the study of ancient texts. AI could be employed to decipher damaged manuscripts, translate obscure languages, or identify patterns in historical data that have gone unnoticed by human researchers. By applying these tools to the Black Israelite narrative, Musk has the potential to uncover insights that could reshape our understanding of history. Musk's influence extends well beyond academic circles. As one of the most prominent public figures of the 21st century, his involvement brings unparalleled visibility to the Black Israelite debate. Through his social media platform, X, formerly Twitter, Musk has a direct line to millions of followers, ensuring that any revelations he shares will resonate globally. Unlike traditional academics, whose work often remains confined to scholarly journals, Musk's public platform allows him to spark widespread discussion and shape popular opinion. Moreover, Musk's reputation as a disruptor lends credibility to his involvement. He is perceived not as an institutional insider, but as an independent thinker willing to question the status quo. This perception enhances his influence, particularly among audiences skeptical of mainstream narratives. If Musk were to present evidence supporting the Black Israelite claims, his endorsement could profoundly alter how the narrative is perceived both academically and culturally. Musk's engagement in the Black Israelite debate has the potential to transform how the topic is discussed and understood. His involvement brings legitimacy and visibility to a narrative often dismissed or ignored by mainstream institutions. By highlighting the movement's historical and cultural significance, Musk may elevate the conversation, encouraging further research and dialogue across disciplines. One of the most immediate effects of Musk's involvement is the amplification of marginalized voices. The Black Israelite narrative has long operated on the fringes of academic and public discourse, often dismissed by mainstream historians and theologians. Musk's endorsement could shift this dynamic by validating the movement's claims and drawing attention to alternative perspectives. This broader recognition might foster a more inclusive understanding of biblical history and its diverse interpretations. However, Musk's foray into this subject also raises critical questions about the intersection of power, influence, and historical interpretation. As a billionaire entrepreneur, Musk wields considerable authority in shaping public opinion. His involvement in the Black Israelite debate could set a precedent for how influential figures engage with historical and cultural issues. While his influence might promote greater understanding, it also risks oversimplification or the imposition of a singular narrative. The use of advanced technologies in historical inquiry introduces another layer of complexity. Musk's application of AI and other tools to the study of ancient texts could revolutionize the humanities, but it also raises ethical and methodological concerns. How should these technologies be employed to balance rigorous interpretation with cultural and religious sensitivities? And what safeguards are needed to ensure that innovation does not overshadow the nuanced human elements of historical inquiry? Musk's engagement with the Black Israelite narrative is emblematic of a broader cultural moment. In an era defined by rapid technological change and growing skepticism toward traditional institutions, questions of identity, history, and power have taken on renewed urgency. The Black Israelite debate encapsulates these themes, challenging dominant narratives and inviting a reconsideration of how history is told and understood. For Musk, this engagement aligns with his vision of creating a better future for humanity. By questioning established narratives and exploring alternative perspectives, Musk seeks to empower individuals to think critically and challenge authority. His involvement in the Black Israelite debate reflects this broader mission, offering a model for how influential figures can use their resources and platforms to promote intellectual inquiry and cultural transformation. At the same time, Musk's role in this debate highlights the complexities of influence in the modern world. As a figure who bridges the realms of technology, business, and culture, Musk exemplifies the convergence of power across different spheres. His engagement in historical and theological discussions illustrates how these realms can intersect in transformative ways, shaping not only our understanding of the past, but also our vision for the future. 3. The hidden history. Elon Musk's investigations into the historical and theological connections between African communities and ancient Israel have reportedly yielded startling discoveries. If authenticated, these findings could challenge established narratives and offer new insights into the identities and migrations of biblical peoples. According to sources close to Musk, his research focuses on three key areas: ancient manuscripts, genetic studies, and colonial archives. One of the most significant pieces of evidence Musk's team has allegedly uncovered is a set of ancient scrolls purportedly found in the Sahel region of Africa. These scrolls, written in a combination of Hebrew and other ancient Afro-Asiatic languages, are said to contain genealogical records linking certain West African tribes to ancient Israel. The Sahel, a transitional region between the Sahara Desert and the Savannah, has long served as a crossroads of civilizations, making it a plausible repository for diverse historical artifacts. If authenticated, these scrolls could upend traditional historical narratives by providing direct evidence connecting African populations to the lost tribes of Israel, claims often dismissed as speculative or mythological. Preliminary analyses reportedly suggest that the scrolls document migratory patterns, religious practices, and tribal affiliations consistent with those described in the Hebrew Bible. These records could serve as a bridge between oral histories preserved in African diasporic communities and the written traditions of ancient Israel. To validate these findings, Musk's team is said to be collaborating with linguists, historians, and archaeologists. The authentication process includes carbon dating to determine the scroll's age and comparative analyses with other ancient texts. The potential implications are profound. They could redefine how historians understand the spread of Semitic cultures and languages while challenging Eurocentric interpretations of biblical history. In addition to manuscripts, Musk has reportedly turned to genetic research to investigate ancestral links between African populations and the ancient Israelites. Genetic studies, while often contentious, offer new avenues for exploring historical migrations and population dynamics. Advances in DNA sequencing and analysis have enabled researchers to trace genetic markers across time and geography, opening possibilities for reconstructing long-forgotten connections. Some genetic studies have already suggested that certain African populations, particularly in regions like West Africa and the Horn of Africa, carry markers potentially linked to Semitic groups. The Lemba people of southern Africa, for instance, have long claimed Israelite ancestry, and genetic analyses have identified markers in their Y chromosomes consistent with Jewish priestly lineages. While Musk's research reportedly does not focus exclusively on the Lemba, it builds on similar methodologies to explore genetic connections across broader African and diasporic populations. Critics of genetic studies caution against oversimplified conclusions, emphasizing the complexity of human genetic diversity and the limitations of correlating genetic markers with cultural or ethnic identities. Musk's approach, however, reportedly integrates genetic data with historical and archaeological evidence to construct a more comprehensive picture of ancestral ties. If validated, his findings could provide scientific support for the notion that African communities possess a legitimate claim to Israelite heritage. Perhaps the most explosive element of Musk's investigation is the alleged discovery of colonial-era documents that detail deliberate efforts to suppress knowledge of African Israelite connections. These letters, journals, and administrative records, some dating back to the 18th and 19th centuries, reportedly reveal a concerted campaign to erase or distort African histories that conflicted with colonial narratives. During the height of European imperialism, colonial administrators and missionaries often sought to undermine indigenous cultures and replace them with European ideologies and religious systems. Enslaved Africans who carried oral traditions of Israelite descent were systematically stripped of their cultural and spiritual identities. By severing these connections, colonial powers sought to justify the transatlantic slave trade and perpetuate systems of racial subjugation. The documents Musk's team has uncovered allegedly include correspondence between European officials discussing strategies for silencing claims of African Israelite heritage. These efforts range from suppressing oral traditions to destroying artifacts and texts that supported alternative historical narratives. Such actions were part of a broader campaign to delegitimize African civilizations and reinforce racial hierarchies. If authenticated, these records could have far-reaching implications for understanding the historical erasure of African contributions to global history. They challenge the foundations of many Eurocentric narratives, raising critical questions about the role of power and ideology in shaping collective memory. The history of Black Biblical Israelites is replete with examples of suppression and marginalization. For centuries, claims of African Israelite connections have been dismissed by mainstream historians as pseudo-history or religious mythology. Yet emerging evidence suggests these claims may be rooted in genuine historical and cultural linkages. During the transatlantic slave trade, many enslaved Africans carried with them oral traditions linking their ancestry to ancient Israel. These traditions included references to biblical figures, rituals resembling Mosaic laws, and a sense of divine chosenness. Colonial authorities systematically suppressed such narratives, replacing African spiritual practices with a Eurocentric interpretation of Christianity. Oral traditions have long been a cornerstone of African cultures, preserving historical, spiritual, and cultural knowledge. In the Americas, these traditions persisted in the form of songs, stories, and religious practices, despite relentless efforts to erase African identities. Musk's investigation reportedly includes efforts to document and analyze these oral histories, treating them as valuable sources of evidence rather than dismissing them as folklore. In addition to oral traditions, Musk's team is reportedly uncovering overlooked manuscripts and artifacts. These include religious texts, carvings, and relics bearing similarities to Israelite iconography and practices. For example, certain West African communities have long practiced circumcision, observed dietary restrictions, and celebrated festivals that parallel those described in the Hebrew Bible. While these practices are often attributed to Islamic or indigenous influences, Musk's team is exploring the possibility that they represent remnants of Israelite heritage. The suppression of African Israelite connections during the colonial era remains a critical focus of Musk's research. By unearthing documents detailing these efforts, Musk's team highlights the role of power dynamics in shaping historical narratives. The deliberate erasure of African contributions to global history was not merely an act of ignorance, but a calculated strategy to justify exploitation and subjugation. This suppression has had lasting consequences. It marginalized alternative perspectives on biblical history, reinforced Eurocentric interpretations of the Bible, and perpetuated racial hierarchies that continue to influence contemporary societies. By amplifying suppressed voices and histories, Musk's findings could challenge these structures and promote a more inclusive understanding of the past. Elon Musk's investigations into the hidden history of Black Biblical Israelites hold the potential to reshape how history, theology, and identity are understood. If his purported findings are authenticated, they could validate claims of African Israelite heritage and challenge deeply entrenched narratives about race and religion. By bringing these suppressed stories to light, Musk contributes not only to historical scholarship, but also to dismantling the racial hierarchies that have shaped global power dynamics. His findings underscore the importance of questioning dominant narratives and embracing a more inclusive approach to understanding history. In doing so, Musk invites us to reconsider what we think we know about the past and to uncover the untold stories that continue to shape our collective identity. Conclusion. The implications of Elon Musk's involvement in this historical narrative are profound and far-reaching. Revisiting the question of Black biblical Israelites compels us to confront uncomfortable truths about history, identity, and the enduring legacy of colonialism. It challenges the narratives we have inherited and urges us to reconsider the voices that have been systematically silenced over centuries. For African Americans, the prospect of being linked to the ancient Israelites carries profound significance. It offers not only a powerful sense of identity and belonging, but also an opportunity to reclaim a history that has often been distorted or dismissed. For society at large, Musk's investigations raise fundamental questions about who controls history and how it has been used to shape cultural, political, and social realities. For Musk himself, this endeavor solidifies his position as more than just a disruptor of industries. It positions him as a seeker of truth. By turning his attention to questions of historical and cultural significance, Musk broadens the scope of his influence, bridging the worlds of innovation, scholarship, and social consciousness. As this story continues to unfold, one thing is certain. Musk's involvement ensures that the world will pay attention. Whether his findings are ultimately embraced or contested, they will ignite debates that transcend the boundaries of academia, permeating public discourse and reshaping collective perceptions. The hidden history of the Black biblical Israelites is no longer confined to obscurity. It is emerging into the light. With Musk's leadership and the resources at his disposal, this exploration may forever alter how we understand the past, engage with the present, and envision the future.